From Bart getting spanked by a former president to the NHL not impressed with how the Stanley Cup was treated, these are celebrities that were mocked by The Simpsons. We're starting with a classic case of the Bush versus The Simpsons. As many may know, The Simpsons has always been known for its sometimes childlike humor, poking fun at all kinds of targets. But in the early 90s, they caught the attention of the White House, and not in a way they would have hoped. The Simpsons' portrayal of a dysfunctional family was seen as controversial by some, and none other than the First Lady herself, Barbara Bush, called the show the dumbest thing she had ever seen. But it was George H.W. Bush's own remarks that really set things off. In 1992, he gave a speech calling for a nation closer to the Waltons than The Simpsons, referring to the popular TV show about a wholesome family in rural Virginia.
To make American families a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like The Simpsons.
You just had to pick a fight, didn't you, George? Of course, The Simpsons couldn't resist firing back. In a promo clip, the family watched Bush's speech on their iconic living room TV, and Bart quipped, "Hey, we're just like the Waltons. We're praying for an end to the Depression, too." This started a bit of a rivalry between the Bush family and The Simpsons. But things really came to a head in 1996 with the episode Two Bad Neighbors. In this classic, much-beloved episode, the Bushes moved in across the street from The Simpsons, leading to all kinds of hijinks, starting the feud with George Bush himself spanking Bart for misbehaving, which enraged Homer, setting off a prank war that ends with the former president strangling Homer in the middle of the street. Needless to say, this episode caused quite a stir. However, as one of The Simpsons writers, Bill Oakley, has said, it wasn't really a political attack, just a personal one. The episode was meant to poke fun at Bush's crotchetiness and his old-fashioned parenting style. Whether or not Bush ever saw the episode is unclear, but it's safe to say he wouldn't have appreciated it.
All right, mister. You want trouble, you're gonna get trouble.
Another celebrity who definitely didn't appreciate being mocked by The Simpsons, or more accurately, imitated by them, was a gangster movie legend, Frank Severo. Severo has had roles in some of the biggest gangster movies of all time, including Goodfellas and The Godfather. Not a bad resume. And was convinced that The Simpsons ripped off his likeness for one of their characters. Specifically, Severo claims that Louie, one of Fat Tony's henchmen, is based on his Goodfellas character, Frankie Carbone.
Where did that come from? Whoa!
Severo ended up filing a $250 million lawsuit against Fox Television Studios in 2014, claiming that the use of his likeness caused a loss of likeness, and that he had been living next door to writers from The Simpsons who based the character on him. However, the court didn't see it that way. They found that the character didn't sufficiently resemble Severo and that it was a parody of multiple mob characters, not just Carbone. They also noted that even if it had been based on Severo, it would still be protected under the First Amendment's parody laws. Severo appealed the decision, but 4 years later, got the same result. Unlucky, Frankie. So it seems that The Simpsons were in the clear. Legally, at least. Did he have a point? Or was Severo just looking for an easy buck? Regardless if you thought Severo had a point or not, he wasn't the first, or the last, to accuse The Simpsons of stealing their likeness, and mock them. But what happens when someone tries to turn the tables on The Simpsons? Well, you get Seth MacFarlane, in the form of Family Guy. When The Simpsons premiered in 1989, it made news as the first primetime animated show since The Flintstones in 1960 to 1966. But success really does breed imitation. So, after the show put Springfield on the map, audiences were flooded with an onslaught of adult-targeted evening cartoons, many of which failed and went bust. But one that picked up speed and kept rolling was Seth MacFarlane's Family Guy. Following The Simpsons formula pretty closely on the surface, many saw Family Guy as something of a knockoff when it arrived in 1999, boasting a fat dad, a long-suffering wife, and frequently embarrassed kids. Wow, Seth, you could have at least tried to make it a little less obvious. Eventually, Seth MacFarlane's creation would establish its fan base as a much cruder and out-of-the-box show in terms of comedy, with the lines they were willing to cross and their willingness to go to darker places than The Simpsons ever would. The relationship seemed cordial at first, but some makers of The Simpsons apparently weren't fans of their sometimes Sunday evening companions, starting a long-running feud. It appeared to begin around Missionary Impossible, Season 11, Episode 15, when Betty White was depicted as hosting a telethon and begging viewers to help keep this crude, lowbrow programming on the air, as she stood next to a Family Guy logo.
So if you don't want to see crude, lowbrow programming disappear from the airwaves...
It would continue across 9 Simpsons episodes, from minor references, with Mr. Burns uttering Stewie Griffin's catchphrase, "What the deuce," in Season 23, to major put-downs in Treehouse of Horror 13. Homer creates an army of clones, with viewers seeing that one is Peter Griffin, taking a shot at Family Guy's originality, or lack thereof. But Family Guy wasn't one to not engage in a tit-for-tat. For their part, Family Guy shot back, including one vicious gag MacFarlane devised that had Quagmire having sex with Marge Simpson and then murdering the entire family.
Get off my wife!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Jeez, could have been a little more subtle there, MacFarlane.
All right. Nobody fire at Lois. She's scared.
This incident may have put an end to the feud, at least publicly, after Fox cut the gag, and reportedly told both sides to stop making fun of one another. Although the gag can still be seen intact on subsequent Family Guy DVDs and airings on Adult Swim. It seemed the Simpsons crew was divided over how seriously to take the feud. Gene said to Underground Online that Family Guy should be more original, claiming he recognized specific gags they had stolen. South Park creator Trey Parker said that the Simpsons crew sent him flowers for mocking Family Guy even more viciously than they ever had in South Park's episode Cartoon Wars. But Groening ultimately stated that the rivalry is very affectionate. As for MacFarlane, he told Rolling Stone in 2012 that he felt ostracized in his early career, so it's easy to see why he kept up his side of the battle. The feud may have simmered down in recent years, but it's clear that the competition between The Simpsons and Family Guy will forever be part of the animated television landscape. Another feud that The Simpsons couldn't help but continue was a much more unlikely pairing. In the episode The Last Temptation of Crust, Krusty the Clown had a rough night after a disastrous appearance at a show headlined by younger, hipper comedians. And, in an attempt to drown his sorrows, he goes on the bender to end all benders.
I'm going on the bender to end all benders.
Drinking everything in sight, including the Stanley Cup. Yeah, we've all been there, Krusty. Well, yeah, maybe not the Stanley Cup part, but you know what I mean. It was a hilarious bit, but not everyone was laughing. In 2014, it was reported that the National Hockey League had sent a strongly worded letter to The Simpsons creators after the episode aired in 1998. Mike Scully, who was the showrunner at the time, had this to say: "We did get a letter from the NHL after that episode, but I had a cool Fox lawyer who said, 'Don't worry about it, just throw it away.'" It's fair to say the lawyer didn't take the NHL's problem with the show seriously. This is probably why The Simpsons continued to desecrate the cup in future episodes, including the episode Viva Ned Flanders, Season 10, Episode 10, which showed the Stanley Cup in the hotel room after Homer and Flanders' night of drunken debauchery, and again in an opening couch gag of Homer Goes to Prep School, Season 24, Episode 9, showing the Stanley Cup transformed into Maggie. So, even though the NHL may not have liked the mocking of their prestigious trophy, it was clear The Simpsons had little care or worry when it came to showcasing the Stanley Cup in less than ideal situations. So, from the NHL disgusted with the treatment of their iconic Stanley Cup, to former President George H.W. Bush strangling Homer and spanking Bart, these were the celebrities that were mocked by The Simpsons.